released at the time of broadcast. Lots to cover on the Hockey Talk Show this evening. Injuries starting to plague the playoffs. We'll get into that. Plus, the Calgary Flames have fired head coach Glenn Gulletson. They actually clean house. Coaching staff is gone for the most part. And you see the title of this show. I know a lot of the Hockey Talk Show fans have been waiting for this one. A lot of Islander fans have been waiting for this one. But we can now tell you that the New York Islanders will be moving on from Garth Snow. He's not fired, but they're moving on from Garth Snow. All that and more covered on this episode of the Hockey Talk Show. Yes, live with you here on a Tuesday, April 6th. Thank you so much if you're watching on Facebook and YouTube live. Again, make sure you guys like our channel, but not only that, make sure that you are subscribed and getting notifications on both Facebook and YouTube. Super important that whenever we go live, you guys are in on the conversation. It doesn't work unless you click that little bell on YouTube, which should be over here in this corner. And on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Hockey Talk Show. Make sure you're following us and that you're getting notifications first and that you're seeing all of our notifications. You can do that when you're on our page. Just put your mouse right over follow and a little menu will pop down and boom, you're in business. You are in business. Thumbs up if you're watching already. Let me know where you're watching from and what you want to talk about tonight, because primarily we're going to be discussing the New York Islanders, Garth Snow, Glenn Gulletson, and of course the injuries, like I said up at the top of the show. But anything else you want to get into, certainly the comment sections are wide open and available to you right now. Connor, what's going on, my man? Welcome in. Aaron, go Pittsburgh. Let's start with the Pittsburgh Penguins. We have some news for you guys. It looks like Patrick Hornquist is going to miss Game 4. Day-to-day upper body injury. Letang misses practice today, but is expected to play. That is the latest on the Pittsburgh Penguins. More news from that series, though. Sean Couturier left Flyers practice early today because of an apparent injury. Game 4 of the Eastern Conference first round, Pens at Flyers, is tomorrow night. No word yet on if he is going to make it. Of course, we'll have an update for you on tomorrow night's show. John, welcome in. What's the deal? True first 10... What? I don't know. That's not English. But John's excited about the Garth Snow news. We got some real hot, solid news for you guys on Garth Snow. I'm not going to tease it for too long. I just want to clean up some of the other business and say hi to everybody and get everybody together here. Priscilla, I love this channel. Sharing with my hockey friends and family. Thumbs up, Priscilla. Sharing is caring. You hit that share button on YouTube or Facebook. We love you guys eternally for that. The show has grown so much in its first season here. This is our first playoffs since we started, and we're only going to get into bigger and better things. Things are already in the works. We're super excited, and you guys keep helping us grow our channel, so thank you guys for that. Enrique, do you think Randy Carlyle finally gets booted out of Anaheim for good? I think there's a real strong possibility. We're getting to this point. We saw it with the Kings, although they made it in. We saw it with Chicago. They obviously didn't. The New York Rangers with Nash, right? Where we've had some guys in these prominent positions for a long time. Taves, Kane, Nash, plus whomever. That second person is, I guess, Nash, Lundqvist, you could say. Getzoff and Perry, right? You know what I'm saying? Like these guys are starting to get up there now, a little long in the tooth. So I think we're going to see some changes. I still don't know what Chicago is going to do. The possibility of moving on from Taves, I think, is there, but I wouldn't put money on. I mean, it's possible. Anything's possible. I could I could open up my window and fly out. It's possible. It's highly unlikely. But I think that these conversations are going to start happening amongst some of these general managers. You know, maybe we'll swap this guy for that guy. You know, I don't know. You know, could there be a Taves for Getzlaf trade at some point? I mean, I'm not saying that these GMs wouldn't talk about it. I don't know if it would happen, but I'm sure it would be entertaining to talk about. Start to get some new looks, right? Make some things happen, change it up a little bit. And I think the coaching staff could be part of that, to answer your question, Enrique. I do think that maybe Anaheim could be in for some adjustments. There's been some coaching changes. There's been some personnel changes. Let's face it, the West is getting tough. Vegas is in the mix now. You know, Winnipeg has come of age. Nashville is a perennial contender now, right? It seems like Nashville is sort of in that groove, and they're going to be there for a little while. You know, now Anaheim is no longer the team to beat. It doesn't, and I don't want to speak too prematurely here, doesn't look like the Kings are the team to beat now, right? We're kind of changing things over a little bit. So now teams are going to have to start bulking up and building to beat Vegas and bulking up to beat Winnipeg and Nashville. So I do think there's going to be some transitions in Anaheim, and Randy Carlyle could be one of them. You know, in a year where we didn't have any coaches fired, we're getting a lot now towards the end of the season here. And I was a little surprised that Glenn Gulutzan got let go today. That's a pretty big story. Obviously, anytime a coach is fired, it's a pretty big story. It would have been the lead for us here had we not received this Garth Snow information just before we went to air. So that obviously is going to take a little bit of a higher priority. A general manager moving out, a little bit higher priority over a coach. But Glenn Gulutzan fired today. Flames finished 37-35 in the Pacific. They missed the playoffs by 11 points this season. Gulutzan in 2 seasons with Calgary was 82, 68, and 14. I mean, it's kind of crazy where we are in sports today that you can fire a coach that has got a winning record. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of nuts. But look, teams are at different states in their natural, you know, progressions. And right now, the feeling in Calgary was got to make the playoffs, right? The Hamonic deal last year was a big part of this. They gave up a lot of first-round draft picks. It sucks right now to be a Calgary Flames fan because you don't have a coach, you don't have a lot of #1 draft picks, and you don't have a lot of answers. So there's a lot to be done now in Calgary, and the work begins with getting rid of Glenn Gulutzan. Who do you bring in? Alain Vigneault? Possibility. He's going to be, honestly, on top of all of our lists every time a coach gets fired. I still think Lindy Ruff is a possibility. And I also think he's been lurking out there for a little while. Dave Tippett. You know, what's going on with Dave Tippett? It's been a while since he exited Arizona. I would have never let him go personally. If that were me, I would have tried to keep Dave Tippett until I couldn't breathe anymore. But they obviously over in Arizona chose to let him go. I think Dave really likes the coaching, but I want to have a big say in the front office position. And I don't know if that's going to be available to him anywhere. Not sure if it's Dallas. Maybe it is Calgary. We'll have to wait and see. But Glenn Gulutzan is now on the beach. Do they say that in other industries? That's a radio thing. In radio, when you get fired, they say, oh, so-and-so is on the beach. They don't like to say you got fired. They say so-and-so is on the beach. I don't know if that happens in other, like, I don't know. You guys let me know. In your industry, when you get fired, are you on the beach? Or is that just a dumb radio thing? But Gulutzan is on the beach. And does he make himself available? Is he attractive enough to other teams? I don't really know. I don't really think so, to be honest with you. I don't have any bad things to say, but honestly, that was a pretty damn good Calgary Flame team, and they should have gotten more out of them. Frankly, the throwing the sticks and all that stuff, I like it. But that stuff comes to bite you in the ass sometimes on the way back. If you wonder why the National Hockey League is kind of boring when it comes to coaches and interviews and player interviews, it's because of this very reason, because this stuff tends to come back around and Bites you in the rear end, throwing the sticks up in the thing. I like it at the time it happens. It's motivating, but when it doesn't work, jerks like me bring it up. You know what I'm saying? Boy, we got to get into this Islander thing. Isles doing a Carolina. Snow's moved within the organization, no longer GM. He's still the general manager as of right now, but you're on the right track there, John, and I got some details. Taylor Hall versus Tampa Bay Lightning. How good was Taylor Hall last night? Taylor Hall, Nathan McKinnon, and Freddie Anderson were spectacular for their teams last night. Downright spectacular. Do you think, in your opinion, that you could compare Austin Matthews to Eric Lindros being such a top hockey player but frequently injured? And can this affect the way they see him as a franchise player? I think it's a little too early. Matthews has been hurt a bunch. I think it's a little too early. I think Lindros was bigger. I think Lindros was much more physical. Although Austin has some size, he doesn't throw it around as much as Lindros does. And again, this is a different point in the game. The game is just not as physical as it used to be. I think that Lindros, a little bit more physical. Matthews, a little bit more skilled. Definitely a better skater, even though Lindros was a fairly decent skater for his size. So I think the comparisons about power forward. The thing is, Matthews is a power forward. He's got a lot of skill, but nobody really talks about it. That cat's a power forward. He may not be categorized as such, but to me, that's a traditional power forward right there. Daryl Sutter's out there, although from what I understand, Daryl Sutter is enjoying the heck out of feeding cows and pigs. And why would you give up the life of living on a farm to go coach in the National Hockey League? I don't know. That's a lot of stress, especially when you've already been there. I would kill family members I would literally, if I had to choose between saving a chance to coach a hockey team or letting go of my Aunt Lorraine, goodbye, Aunt Lorraine. Good luck getting down that mountain. I would definitely lose family members in order to coach, but he's already been there. So, let's see here. I think they're incomparable. Yeah. They're definitely, they came from such different parts that, not too many years apart, when you look at it, like Lindros was so different than Gretzky, even though they overlapped, they were from different times. They were both dominant players, but Lindros was so different from Gretzky. But I think the difference between Lindros and Gretzky, or, even if you want to go a little bit farther back than that and go Gordie Howe and Lindros, the difference between Gordie Howe and Lindros and the difference between Matthews and Lindros, I think there's a bigger difference between Matthews and Lindros than Gordie and Lindros. I do. I think this time period was different, but I think from Lindros to Matthews, we've made an even bigger leap in the game. Lindros was a concussion victim. Matthews has different injuries. Millennial injuries. Am I right, people? Hashtag Tide Pods. I think they're pretty comparable. I feel like Vigneault would be a good fit in Calgary. He would. I think he'd be a good fit in Dallas, too. Kale says, bye, Auntie. Yeah, sorry, Aunt Lorraine. I will get to picks for tonight's game. Let's see here. A lot of good discussions tonight. I want to welcome the guys over at Red Light Hockey. They had some good stuff. They had a great poll up the other day. If you're unfamiliar with Red Light Hockey on Facebook, that's a good hockey group. Search NHL Red Light Hockey. Had a great poll the other day that I'm definitely going to be using in an upcoming show about general managers, which I really, really enjoyed, that I want to get to. Also, I want to mention this, and we'll spend a little time on this at the end of the program, but John Amarante passed away today. If you guys are unfamiliar with him, we're going to spend a little time with him at the end of the show. If you're unfamiliar, I will spread a little education your way on that. But Glenn Gulletson, what do you think? Does he find another job? And who's the best fit for Calgary? Those are the three names I came up with that I like a lot. I like, obviously, it's no surprise, Vigneault. I think Lindy Ruff is going to be in play in a couple of places. Lindy, I think, would work really good in Calgary. Calgary is kind of that old. I think Daryl set the standard, right? They like that old school gruffy coach, and I think that like Kachuk would respond to more of a coach like that than like an old school, than than like a younger guy like Gulletson. I just think he would. And I think that Tkachuk is a real leader on that team. So I don't think it's a bad way to think about that. Lindy, I don't really like portraying confidences too much, but I had the chance to see Lindy a couple of times when I worked for the New York Islanders, and he was one of the rare coach. And when did I worked for the team? Oh, 3-ish, 4-ish, 5-ish. It's all a blur. He was one of the rare coaches then, and the league is so much different now than it was then. But he was one of those rare coaches that I honestly could say I saw him cracking a beer right as soon as the game was over. Guy was cracking a couple of beers, a couple of brews, knocking a couple of brews down. That's pretty old school. I don't know if that was okay. I'll never say this again. This might be a good time to mention it. You know, just once to you guys. Not that it's bad. You can enjoy an adult beverage, but I forget what the rules were on whether or not you could actually do that. I know for a time in the National Hockey League, players would be cracking brews and smoking cigarettes after the game. But I know things have certainly changed. I don't know if anybody really does that now. But I could thoroughly remember walking by, and Lindy was I would deliver stats because I worked for the media relations, public relations, media relations. And I'd go down and I would be delivering stats to the players and to the coaches after the game. Players, by the way, super obsessed with their ice times. They were always dying to get those things. It was like gold to these guys. I would be giving the stats to Lindy. This is, by the way, when we had to print them and run them. It was crazy. It's so much right now a team can finish a game and a coach could pick up his phone and have all that information at his fingertips. He can have it on the bench with him. He can be seeing it. But back 10 years ago when I worked there, 10, 15 years ago when I worked for the team, we literally had to print it and run down paper copies to the players. But anyway, it would take a good 15, 20 minutes after the game to get things down there, and I'd run into the locker room and get it to all the coaches because they wanted to take a look at it. And I remember specifically Lindy being a couple in already by the time the game was over. Win or lose, by the way. This happened several times over his time, over my time working for the team. Let's see. Glenn Gulletson is done as a head coach. Probably still a better hockey commentator than McGuire. I'm losing you guys here a little bit. Calgary needs a coach like Edward G. Robinson. Do you think Vesa Toskala was a good goalie? That's a great question. No. Would love Lindy behind the Isles bench. Old school. Tortorella to Calgary. Ken Morrow, new Isles GM. Over to Facebook. I'd love to see Colorado take down the Preds. They've been good in every game. Steven, what about Snow? All right, let's move it over to Garth Snow. Quickly here to actually just to read. Let's go and recap the games from last night. Good hockey last night, wasn't it? I mean, real good hockey. All good games. San Jose just destroyed Anaheim. Can we start there? 8-1. Jesus. I didn't really see much of that game. It's the late game for me. You know, I get up to do radio here in New York. But 8-1, I mean, that series, is that going to be a sweep or what? I was impressed with Colorado. By the way, Nathan McKinnon put that team on his back and carried them all the way. First goal, though, I got to give credit to Blake Como. It was pretty sweet. It was great that Colorado got on the board first, and they set the tone. It's not going to be easy for Nashville. I still think they take it in 6, but I think Colorado puts up a little bit of a fight. And as we can see, between Colorado, the Devils, and Toronto, home ice is massive in these playoffs. It usually is, but I think this year, a little bit more than ever, we're seeing the importance of home ice in these games. You know, every one of the home teams won last night. I don't even know what the percentage is. I'm sure if you look it up, probably 80% of these games, the home team has won. The exception of Anaheim and Los Angeles. You know, there really hasn't been many road wins, you know. Joe, the Ducks are done big time. I think so. I think it's becoming apparent, too, that, and I love Corey Perry, but honestly, the feeling on Corey, and you look at his stats over the last couple of years, we've tapped him. We've tapped that keg that is Corey Perry. You know, for a while there, he was so lights out and so hard to deal with, and now he's become more of a cheap shot artist than an actual skilled player. His game has changed, and Maybe he's just down that Ryan O'Reilly path of having an off year and losing his focus. But Anaheim has got to figure out what they're going to do because they are really big and not as fast as Vegas. And we're seeing how important speed is in the game today. Super, super important. Taylor Hall, another McKinnon move, just put the team on his back last night and honestly took it to the Tampa Bay Lightning. I was pretty surprised. I felt like, I think I called this series in 5 games. I thought that the Devils would grab 1. At the end of the day, maybe they'll grab 2. I don't foresee them doing well, but honestly, they showed up last night and they took it to Tampa Bay. They let Tampa Bay know, hey, this ain't going to be easy for you guys, and we're not going to just go quietly. Speaking of which, Toronto did the same thing. Now, this is the Toronto team that I picked to win this series, and it's impossible. And out of all the series, I knew I was going to be wrong about this one, or the possibility of me being wrong was big. And I also felt a little wishy-washy about picking Washington over Columbus, and we're seeing that that's proven to be true. That Columbus looks pretty good, taking a 2-0 lead. But again, it's not over. But still, this is the team that Toronto needs to be. Now, Plekanec moved up. I don't think he might have had a couple of assists. That was really Marlowe's night. He really, I felt, carried that team. I don't give as much credit to Plekanec, but let's face it. I called Babcock into question last night, moving Plekanec up. I don't know if it worked. I don't know if it was good, but I think having Dominic Moore in the lineup was better, which I was screaming for, than not. And I still think that Matt Martin will do better with this team, but that's just my opinion. Either way, they opened up some ice for themselves. Matthews looked great. There was a couple of just wonderful moments. If you watch the highlights, Zdeno Chara's goal was friggin' ridiculous. I mean, scored from practically behind the goal line, and just he had a puck's worth of space to get it past Freddie Anderson, and he did. It was unreal. It was unreal. It really gave Boston a boost. But you know what? Toronto didn't relent, and the crowd was behind them, and they disrupted Boston in front of the net. If you noticed that last night, Boston was putting a lot of pucks in from the front of the net in the previous game. Last night's game, Toronto really stepped up. And by the way, if you want to see the most ridiculous save in the playoffs so far, it was Freddie Anderson's. It was one of those where he was diving this way and just paddled the puck out. Just really just nailed it with the paddle. Unbelievably good. Unbelievable. If you saw it last night, you got to give it up to Freddie Anderson. That is save of the playoffs 2018 so far. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. Toronto did get a little bit of a help from a bad penalty call. A delay a game, puck out of the rink there, and it did hit the glass, so they got lucky. Toronto got lucky. They converted on that power play, but they'll take it. That series now at 2-1. I really think that Toronto, if they have a shot, they got to go back to Boston with that series even. Same thing for the Devils and Colorado. I like them. I just don't see them overcoming the I just don't see them overcoming the Nashville Predators. I don't see it. Louis, can I just say that I'm in the shower right now listening to you? Very soothing. It's my dream come true, man. I want to be in the shower with people. Vegas sweeping tonight, I hope. Louis, take a look down in the description on YouTube. I put a link to Louis' channel, Vegas Golden Knights coverage. You gotta let me know, brother, if you're doing the live reaction. Lou's been a really good friend of the Hockey Talk show. He's got a great channel. Again, it's below if you're interested in getting more insight on Vegas. Even if you're not going to watch every episode, just subscribe to his channel. It's really, really good. But he's been doing these live reaction things, and I got to be honest with you, Lou, you've inspired me to do the same. I don't know when we're going to do it, and I'm thinking maybe more towards the end of the playoffs, conference finals, perhaps maybe Stanley Cup final. I'm thinking for sure. We'll do some live reaction where we'll throw the game on. I can't show the game. I'm thinking I could probably feed some sound in, but I don't know. The NHL gets a little finicky with that. They might try and block us. But either way, we'll have the game. You guys can watch the game where you are. I'll watch the game here, and we'll comment along with some of the games. Maybe we'll pick some of the games a little bit later on in the playoffs. It'll be easier to do it then. For Lou, it's easy to do for Vegas. He covers Vegas. You know, we cover all the NHL teams, so it'll be a little easier, you know, as we get down to the end. So I think we're going to do, you inspired me, Lou. Thanks for that. to do some live reaction shows so we can talk about the plays and the bad calls and the great goals and the unbelievable saves as they're happening. So again, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do. I see the stats. I know there's a lot of people that watch the show often that aren't subscribed. So subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and look out for some of these live shows that we're going to be doing during games, some live reaction shows. But if you want to see Lou, I think maybe he doing it tonight as Vegas goes for the sweep. Channel's linked below on YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook, just click the links over at hockeytalkshow.com. Let's get to the main topic of our program today. The Islanders are moving on from Garth Snow. Now, this is super important because it's a very delicate situation. As I've said with the New York Islanders, they have to get rid of Garth Snow while not disrupting the renegotiation process with John Tavares. If they want to have any shot of retaining number 91, this is what they have to do. They have to reduce Garth's power, let him save face, and let it not disrupt what they're trying to do in signing and re-signing John Tavares. But we have it on quite good authority, and I must give credit to my former employer, Chris Bada, who now runs, or I should say helps run, an Islander covered website called Islanders Point Blank. If you're an Islander fan and you're not following, you should be. His article today, I've heard some rumblings. He confirms with sources, and it's the right move. It's the smart move for the New York Islanders to move Garth Snow along into a presidential or hockey operations role and bring in somebody else to skipper this team, because it's just what they need. They need a little different perspective. I don't know if Garth is going to like this. I don't know if Doug Waite is going to like it, but I think, and I'm hoping, that this is a good signal, and I got to believe this, and again, this is just gut from me, that John Ledecky has already spoken with John Tavares. I don't know this for sure, but I'm assuming that this is Ledecky reaching out to Tavares or the fan base and saying, look, we hear you, and we're going to make some adjustments. Firing Garth Snow again, any other year, I could be down with. But while you're renegotiating with your franchise player, I just don't see it as a smart play. The Isles are in a real catch-22. I know fans don't want to hear this, and I know they want to hear just fire the guy and everything will be better tomorrow. The roses will bud tomorrow. But that's not what happens. That's not the way it's going to go down. Joe, we need to move on from Snow. I agree. And this is the way to do it. This is the right way to do it. This is the only way to do it. Again, if John Tavares met with John Ledecky and they came to an agreement that he would resign if Snow would go, then fire Snow. That's the right way to do it. But if that's not the right way to do it, if it's delicate, if John really trusts Garth and Snow, so on and so forth, and let's not forget, he lived with Doug Waite his first year with the New York. He lived with him, lived in his home his first year. It's very common for NHL players in their first year to live with a veteran. They try and encourage that all around the league, and I think it's a smart move. Helps bring them up the right way. By the way, they're used to living in strangers' homes. It happens a lot in junior. They're always, with host parents and things like that, so it's a very natural thing. You get a good vet with a nice family. They take a young player under their wing. They show them the ropes. They keep them under control. They don't let them go too crazy. They don't spend a ton of money. It's a good thing. And John lived with Doug, and now Doug's the coach. So wiping these two out, although maybe the smart move from a macro standpoint, not great when you're trying to re-sign your franchise player. So how do you delicately remove the stronghold that this guy has, bring in a fresh new perspective, and continue building onto the team that you have? Because you do have some pretty good building blocks there. Tavares, you got a 40-goal scorer in Lee. You got Rookie of the Year in Barzell, right? You got some great young defensive talent that need a little bit more peppering. You need an upgrade on defense, and you need a goaltender. You got depth in scoring for the first time since the cup-winning years. And the team's not too far away. They're not. But they need the right final pieces. And as we've seen with San Jose, and maybe they have it now with Kane, Washington, the final right pieces are super important. Super, super important and super difficult to do. John, basically new GM answers to Ledecky and him only, no Snow input. Wang signed Snow to a crazy extension before he went to. That's never been able to be confirmed, by the way, nor will it be. But that's what I mean. That's the rumor for the longest time, that he got a 10-year contract. And we all know how Wangy liked to hand out his 10 to 15-year deals. He loved throwing those around. But this is what we're hearing. Co-owners Scott Malkin and Jonathan Ledecky are in the process of identifying a top executive to join the Islanders hockey operations department. 2 NHL sources confirmed this on Tuesday to SNY's Point Blank. Since current Islanders president GM alternate governor Garth Snow has not been relieved of his duties more than a week since the end of another disastrous season, it is believed that the new hire would become the Islanders GM while Snow would remain president or given a new title. We've seen this with Ron Francis, although it was handled horrifically. We've seen this in Philadelphia. This is the way to go about removing a general manager. We've seen this in Edmonton. Now, how much power they have is on a case-by-case basis, but essentially you can move a guy out into this sort of a position and then eventually maybe next year or the year after move him out of the organization completely. It depends. It depends. It doesn't hurt to have him just sit there and collect a check, you know? He does get some credit for this team. I know Islander fans don't want to admit it, but he did bring in Anders Lee. He did bring in Jordan Eberle. He did bring in Matthew Barzal. He did bring in Anthony Beauvillier. I mean, come on. He's not great. He doesn't deserve to be the general manager anymore, but this is what they're doing. The process include now. Here's why it's taking so long, and I think this is interesting because for the first time we've got some names to go by. The process includes asking other NHL teams for permission. This is very important to wait till the first round is done because there are certain teams, i.e., the Devils, who will most likely be out, and you have to wait until they're done in order to talk to some of their people. Who is a possibility here? Well, all the people we heard from on the Carolina GM front, and maybe this is why a lot of the GMs passed on, interviewing with Carolina, because they knew there's going to be some other positions opening up, and maybe the Islanders was an attractive one. Julien Brisebois from the Tampa Bay Lightning, Paul Fenton from the Predators, and Tom Fitzgerald for the Devils. Apparently, and this is what I have been hearing from my very limited sources, is that Tom Fitzgerald is the front runner for this position. One source said that Malkin and Ledecky will wait for the completion of the first round of the playoffs to see which executives become available before intensifying the process. A conversation with Maple Leafs general manager Lou Lamoriello, whose son Chris is the Islanders' assistant GM, should be of interest to the Islanders owners if the legendary ex-Devils boss becomes available. Certainly would be interesting. If Toronto were to move on from Lou, does he come back to the metropolitan area and skipper the Islanders? Could be could be interesting. Could be something worth looking into. While a hire could be made before the second round, Malkin and Ledecky are said to not have a timeline. The priority is to hire the best person when they are available. Deirdre, is this really true? Holy smokes, am I dreaming? Deirdre, this is really true. I know Chris. I can confirm that he doesn't go and make stuff up like a lot of other people do on the internet. If he says two sources confirm this to him, then believe me, two sources confirm this to him. It is something that I had heard but sort of brushed off and didn't really want to mention because, again, a lot of things get blown around. But if Chris is saying it, it is very, very true. I think it's a really good thing for the Islanders. I think it's a move in the right direction. I think that it's how you handle this sort of delicate situation. And by the way, this was a process that began over a year ago, because some of you hardcore Islander fans will remember that when Ledecky and Malkin first took over, they took a tour of the National Hockey League. They literally went around to every single team and they spoke to executives and highly respected hockey people with every single team. And the two missions that they were on was, what do you do in your arena? What do you really like, so that when we get our building, we'll know what we're talking about? And what do you think about Garth Snow and the job he's doing? And if we were to move on for him, what would be the direction? Now, it's delicate. They can't say, hey, would you want to come? Like, they have to get permission. They have to do all these things. But to be honest with you, the owners of the other teams were very open, and a lot of the times arranged some meetings with their executives and themselves at times to Jonathan and Scott to come on in and speak with their franchise so that they can get a better idea, sort of a little bit of a crash course. We thought that this was coming a year and a half ago. It never came to fruition. The belief was that Garth Snow talked them out of doing it. Now, what he did to do that, I don't know. Perhaps he threatened walking. Perhaps he threatened a million things. I'm not sure. Perhaps he just said, guys, please give me 1 year to prove to you that I can do it and that I don't need somebody above me. Because at the time, the thought was they would hire a president to be above Garth. Little did we know that Garth was named president. At some point, we just thought he was the general manager. So there was a little bit of thing behind that. But this was a process that these two new owners started a long time ago and are now finally looking to cash in on. And I think it's the right move for them. And hopefully John Tavares has already been consulted, and hopefully he knows, because if he's reading this in the press before his representation was told, that would be a massive screw up on the part of the New York Islanders. Do you think JT will stay just because of this? Again, great question, Deirdre. I think this is the best way to handle this situation. You can't fire the guy that drafted your franchise player when you're trying to renegotiate with him, unless he says to. If he trusts Garth, if he wants to stay, if he wants to see Garth raise the Stanley Cup over his head, if John wants to hand the cup to Garth after they win it, if that's the dream, can't fire the guy. So you got to keep him in the organization, and this would be the nice move. This, to me, would be the way to go. I think it's smart. Garth gets the save face. He still gets a say maybe in the organization, but the general manager, and I believe the way it should be always, whether you have presidents or vice presidents or whomever, even with owners, I feel like owners should have their say, but I feel like at the end of the day, you hire a GM to do a job, and they got to do the job. They got to make that call. Everybody in the room should have a vote, but at the end of the day, you walk out of that room knowing that that general manager is going to make the call. He's going to have the final decision. That's how you run an organization. That's how you run an organization. No Tavares situation. Snow is long gone by now. A fine line they got to play here. Don't envy them. It's tough. Lou Lamoriello is available. Ledecky turns every stone to get him. Lou is without a contract. Let's keep that in mind. Lou's without a contract. Perhaps waiting on Devils playoffs to be over before announcing Fitzgerald. I think Fitzgerald's a front runner. I really do. I think they like Tom. I think he's a smart hockey guy. To me, I really like Paul Fenton. He's done a lot of great stuff with the Nashville Predators. You look how good their defense is. That's not solely David Poile. A lot of it is David Poile, but Paul's been on a lot of those guys coming up through the ranks and developing them, I think. And the Islanders need help on the D. They got a lot of young D. I really think Paul would be good. That's why I don't think you're going to see any sort of announcement until after the playoffs. But I do think that if they do make this move, they'll have a very small window between the Stanley Cup final and the draft to get somebody in place. And I think that's important because, again, if the Isles are going to make a last-ditch effort to make a move or do something before the draft to help solidify this franchise, to convince John, you're going to want this new person in the mix and well-versed with everything going on in the organization before they get there. You don't want to hire them a week before the draft. You want to have them in the mix. And if they're going to wait for Paul and Nashville's going to the finals, it's going to be a crunch. It is going to be a real time crunch for them. So we'll wait and see what happens with that situation. Also got to mention this, Zach Parise, fractured sternum, will not play game 4, week to week 4. the Minnesota Wild. It sucks to be a Minnesota Wild fan right now. You just lost Suter. Now it's Parise. The guys who came here together are both injured together. It completely sucks. Minnesota had a great last game in this series. I don't see how they overcome this now against Winnipeg. So just further bad news for Parise. So again, Parise, Couturier, a lot of injuries. The injury bug is starting to plague the playoffs here. Hope he's going to start game 3 for the Caps and the Blue Jackets. Let's see if he can spark this team to turn some things around. Final questions before we wrap it up for the night. John wouldn't be surprised if Tavares didn't save him completely from being fired. JT definitely endorses this. I think it's smart. I think John would be like, hey, yeah. I think John would be in favor of this move, to be honest with you. It's the right thing to do. It's honestly, at the end of the day, the right thing to do. Garth did a decent job. He built a decent product. If I'm a general manager, right, there's a lot of teams. There's not a lot of teams I would put in front of the Islanders' job. If you're a general manager right now and every GM in the league is fired, what team would you want to be a part of? You want to be a part of the Islanders are pretty high up there. You don't want to go to Tampa. That team's done. It's solidified. You win there. You'll never, that'll never be considered your team. You want to be able to put your stamp on something, but you want to have a great base there. You know what I'm saying? And the Islanders have a great base, especially if Tavares returns. Especially if JT returns. So 3 games on the slate for this evening. Columbus and Washington. I think that Washington gets a big bounce from Holtby starting a game. He has got to be lights out. Got to stop Panarin if you're going to win and turn this series around. Give me the Caps this evening in Columbus. That's the NBC Sports Network channel for tonight. Over on CNBC at 8 o'clock, Winnipeg and Minnesota. I think Winnipeg goes back up to 3-1, back up to a two-game lead, I should say, without Parise, without Suter. I just don't see Minnesota pulling this one out. And Vegas and the Kings from Los Angeles. I think Vegas completes the sweep. They make history. I think that the Kings are going to put up a good fight. Drew Doughty had some great things to say prior to this game, just going out there and talking about his team and the fact that they just got to win a damn game. I think it's the right attitude. Remember, don't get too cocky. Teams down 3-0 have nothing to lose. Kind of the way Vegas has been all year long. They've been playing with house money, if I could use a Vegas pun. They've had nothing to lose. Vegas has had nothing to lose. They've been in a great situation all year long. Now the Kings are in that situation. Because the Kings can do a whole hell of a lot of stuff, from jumping, from pinching, right? Their game's going to be a lot more freed up because to hell with it. Who cares? What are you going to do? Lose the game and go home? So you're going to take some extra chances. And that's going to be really tough to play against. So I don't think it's going to be an easy one. I wouldn't be surprised if we get some extra innings tonight. But I think that Vegas, at the end of the day, pulls it out. Their forwards are just too fast. It's just too much for them. Would I be shocked if the Kings force a game 5? Nope, not at all. But if you're asking me who I'm putting money on tonight, it is going to be the Vegas Golden Knights for a sweep. I think it's going to be unbelievable. Again, check out Lou's channel down below for the coverage. Lou, I don't know if you said this. Are you doing a live reaction thing? Because I'm going to try and watch some of it before I head to bed this evening. Sandra, so stoked for the Caps in Columbus. What happens to Barry Trotz, best regular season coach, when his team gets destroyed in the first round again? I don't know. That's the question, Sandra. And that might be the great question that none of us can answer. What's the problem in Vegas, in Washington? Same thing. What do you do with Anaheim? What do you do with Chicago? You got great players. Do you need a mix? Do you need to just switch it up? What do you do? Clearly, it's not the coach, right? It ain't Barry Trotz. It's not Barry Trotz. They've been through general managers. They've been through coaches. They've been through players. I don't know. Is it all Ovechkin's fault? I don't know. I think if you're the Caps, I'm staring down TJ Oshie. I got to be honest with you. Kuznetsov, Oshie, these guys have got to step up. I've said this time and time again. Third and fourth line players, second line players are super important. When your stars, when your studs, when your top guys are getting tripled down, when they're getting beat up because the whistles are in the pockets of the referees because it's playoff time, all this stuff. When they're doubling down on Ovechkin, you got to have your supporting cast step up. That's why it's so important to add depth at the trade deadline. So I don't know. I don't know what happens to Barry Trotz. Honestly, firing him, does that appease the fan base? What coach is going to take them to a higher place? Alain Vigneault? I'm just going to say Alain Vigneault's name every time we're talking about coaches. Maybe he could. I don't know. It is a phenomenal question, though, Sandra. I really don't have an answer for you. He can't seem to translate his regular season control to the postseason. Maybe he needs a postseason partner. Maybe. You know, if you're going to tinker with something, I'd rather see somebody else from the staff go. I'd rather see a player go, to be honest with you, than Barry Trotz. Enrique, this is my favorite show to listen to about hockey. Thanks so much, Enrique. Appreciate that, my man. Lewis confirmed he will be doing the live reaction tonight. So check out his channel for that. I want to know what you thought of Sergachev elbow. Kale, honestly, I did not see it. I apologize. I try and watch everything before we get on the air here. I did not see it. Lou, I will try and do that. I will definitely try and do that. Maybe I'll try and crash Lou's live reaction. So if you guys follow Lou, maybe you'll see me in the chat a little bit later on tonight for the Golden Knights game. I don't know if I can last through one of the intermissions. We'll have to wait and see. I'm not entirely sure. As a diehard Islander fan, I don't like to give the Rangers too much credit ever. But one thing is for certain that if you're a fan of hockey in the metropolitan area, you are well aware of John Amarante. He was hired by the New York Rangers in 1980. He rolled pretty strong for, I think, 35 years, singing the national anthem. Rene Raincourt for the Boston Bruins got a lot of publicity this year because he retired. And John Amarante is that guy. Having seen a ton of games at Madison Square Garden, both for the Knicks and the Rangers over my lifetime, I've seen John live a whole slew of times, and it has always been a pleasure. When you think about New York Rangers hockey, you think about John Amarante. A lot of people came and went to sing the national anthem, but it wasn't a real Ranger game unless this guy was doing exactly that. So for this evening, we're going to leave you with John doing what he does best, and that is singing the national anthem over at Madison Square Garden. He passed away this morning at the age of 83, and us here in the New York hockey area, certainly sad to see him go. Have a great night, everybody. Enjoy the hockey action, and we'll see you here tomorrow for another live one. Take care.
What so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad shrines and bright stars